All right, let's go ahead and get to the machinations over the Fed chair. So Trump has long expressed in this administration his upset with Jerome Powell, who he initially was the one who put in at the Fed, by the way, which is going to become relevant during this block. So in any case, apparently he gathered a bunch of Republicans in the Oval Office this week. He reportedly drafted a letter announcing the firing of Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Asked the Republicans in the room, hey, should I do this? According to Trump, they all were like, oh, yes, Mr. President. Yes, sir. That sounds like a great idea. He has not moved forward with that whatsoever. So in any case, he got asked a question about whether or not he is going to fire Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Let's go ahead and take a listen to what he had to say.
He's a terrible Fed chair. I was surprised he was appointed. I was surprised, frankly, that Biden put him in and extended him. But they did. So, no, we're not planning on doing anything. We're very concerned. And that goes for his board, too, because his board is not doing the job, because they should try and rein this guy in. So he's doing a lousy job. But no, I'm not talking about that.
So he says there Biden put him in. Biden did not put him in. He put him in. Whatever. He says there he's not planning on doing anything. So maybe this was like kind of a trial balloon. Maybe it was an attempt to distract from other things like Epstein that was going on. But we can put the reporting about this draft letter up on the screen. According to the New York Times, he penned this letter to fire the Fed chair. He asked Republicans if he should send it. The president, they say, waived a copy of a draft letter firing Jerome Powell at a meeting in the Oval Office with House Republicans. Remains to be seen whether he follows through with that threat. And then the last piece here, Saagar, is while this was all swirling and it seemed like more of an active possibility, there was a pretty significant market reaction, especially with regards to the value of the dollar and also the bond yields, both of which are, significant and important. And so it's possible this was like a trial balloon. Markets freaked. He decided not to do it. Like I said, it's possible it's a distraction. I don't know. What do you make of all this?
It's complicated. As in, I do think that Wall Street worships at the altar of the Fed in a very unhealthy way and have fetishized this whole idea of central bank independence.
Yeah.
I understand why Donald Trump seems to be an unreliable actor through which he would not want to break that norm.
Yeah.
That said, the argument is sound in terms of he's out of step with the rest of the entire world's central bank cuts. If you look at where the rates are right now and the labor market, inflation, and all of that, et cetera, your reaction is not working if you want to look at the core economic problems of the American people. So, one of the main reasons that buying a house right now is just exorbitantly expensive is because of where the rates are. We have not had a rate cut, or at least a substantial one, in multiple years. A lot of people who wanted to refinance in the future are getting hosed. A lot of people are having to sell for much less than they wanted to. It's one of the main barriers to entry. It makes the average mortgage payment double what somebody who got a rate, 4 or 5 years ago. I can sympathize, with all of that. It also makes, the carrying cost of business very difficult. People cannot finance expansion at such high rates. There's a lot of different effects that the rates and all of that have. So it's really one of those where I'm not sure there's two heroes on either side of the story.
Yeah.
If you look at it, we had supply side inflation under Biden, and the Federal Reserve was okay, well, we're going to crush the demand side. I just disagree with that fundamentally, because I think they look at their mandate in the way that Wall Street and all of them want to, an old school economic theory that, in my opinion, does not account for the way that real markets in the real world work. So I think they've done more damage than they have good.
I agree with a lot of that. Trump wants them to cut the rates by 3 percentage points.
Yeah, which would be
That
awesome.
Seems crazy.
Seems awesome.
That seems wild.
Yeah.
And I guess I feel about this sort of similar to how I feel about the term limits conversation, where it's in general, I don't support term limits, but I'm glad they're there right now with Donald Trump. Yeah. And I kind of feel the same thing with the Fed chair. I actually think that president should be able to, have their choice in there and have the Fed policy, monetary policy reflect their agenda and their view of the economy. Do I trust that power in the hand of Donald Trump? No, I do not. So that's kind of where I am. And, I do think if he decided to fire Jerome Powell, I do think there would be a significant market reaction, because they are very attached to this idea, and they also have no confidence in Trump putting in someone there who would be remotely responsible.
That's the problem. But this is where I want people to think a little bit differently. It's like, look, it's not in the Constitution that the Federal Reserve is like this holy sepulcher of, separate part of government. And if you went back in time, people would say it's preposterous that you have this separate independent bank, unanswerable to the public. I mean, if you look back at some of the things, like the Volcker, Jimmy Carter situation, it was insane.
Yeah.
It's like 19% interest rates or whatever, and the president was like, I don't even agree. He appointed him and then, basically ruined any chances of him ever getting elected. And take the political stuff out of it. If you want to work and have some sort of democratic say in your economy, having an independent central bank is probably the worst possible way to do that. It's basically like a giant, insurance scam and all of that for the global financial system. That's fine. Their argument is like, oh, well, that trickles down to all of you. I don't agree with that, at all. The housing situation is perfect. So look at the people who are getting crushed by rates. Look at the people who worship at the altar of this like independent Fed and all of this. And it's mostly Wall Street, bond traders and others. But yeah, that's the Trump factor, as in his, chaos and capriciousness makes it so that if he were the one to do it, even though, again, I think it's a sound enough idea, like democratically, it would cause tremendous market reaction and pushback, which I think he would come to regret if it were to ever happen. But he's socializing the idea on Congress because he wants Powell to resign. He wants him to go away.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I don't know. He's stuck. And by the way, as you said, he's the one who appointed him. So why'd you do that?
Right. Even if he wants to shift it off on
why'd you
Biden,
do
it's
that?
like, dude.
Yeah. You appointed him.
Some of us do have brains that have memories that longer than that of a goldfish.
Oh, I was there.
Sometimes
I literally
do.
remember whenever
Sometimes
he was.
I do.
I remember whenever he was nominated, and especially because he immediately started criticizing him almost after he nominated him.
Yeah.
Like a year in, it's like nothing has changed. Even at that time when we had lower rates, he wanted them to go even lower. So that Trump is a real estate guy. I get it, but I do actually think a lot of the country would be on his side. Most people don't necessarily understand Federal Reserve and all of that. But this is, again, if you wanted to make a case, if Trump were to give a grand speech and be like, all of you are paying too much in your mortgage prices and I want all your mortgage rates to go down and that's why I'm firing the Fed chairman, it would be very popular. But, they don't have the message discipline or or any of that to actually be able to sell that idea. It would fall, and nobody on CNBC is going to be articulating that either. They're going to be, oh my God,
Well,
freak out.
One last note on this, and I think I am remembering this correctly. So the Supreme Court recently ruled that Trump could fire some of these other, sort of supposedly independent, I think it was maybe at the CFPB, officials. But they explicitly tried to write their decision such that they were like, but the Fed is totally different.
Yeah.
So I think he also would probably run into some legal issues. Now, as we've seen with this administration, they just act first and worry about the legal consequences later. And that has been a strategy that's been very effective for them because the Supreme Court, in almost every instance, on the shadow docket where they can just, instead of actually ruling on something, just say, well, you can do it for now as these things work out. They have ruled sided with Trump in almost every instance where that is concerned. So in a sense, they could get their way at least for a while. But I think also ultimately, probably the Supreme Court, being as corporate friendly and business friendly as they are, would ultimately come and say, yeah, this is too far. You can't actually do this.
Yep, I agree. Okay, the next part.
Let's get to Zoran and his big meeting with business leaders.
Yes. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.